Well, the divide between our state and federal government over the largest ICE operation in American history gets wider by the hour. After a second shooting by federal agents last night, followed by clashes with observers and protesters that got unruly. President Trump is threatening to send in the military now via the Insurrection Act. So what does that really mean, and what could history tell us about it? Hey, Kent.
Hey, Jana. If President Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, he would not be the first president to do so. But legal scholars say it's never happened in a situation like the one we're living in. The Insurrection Act gives the president broad power to deploy the military inside the United States to suppress a rebellion or to enforce the law in a state that opposes or obstructs the execution of federal law. It was last invoked in 1992 after riots broke out in Los Angeles following the acquittal of 4 white police officers in the beating death of Rodney King. But in that and nearly every other case, the military was requested by the state. The last time it happened against the wishes of the state was during the 1965 Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, but the military was there to protect the constitutional rights of citizens. That makes it very different than the situation unfolding in Minnesota, meaning we are in uncharted legal waters.
The key to all of this is that because the insurrection clause hasn't really ever been interpreted by courts of law, and that then gives this current president wide latitude to say, this is an insurrection, I want to invoke this act.
If the Insurrection Act is invoked, can the troops coming in do more than they could on the ground, say, in California this summer, where they could just only kind of like protect buildings and things?
That's absolutely right. And they will absolutely be able to go in and put down even nonviolent protests. If ICE is making the argument that those nonviolent protests are impeding their ability to get their job done, then if the insurrection clause is enacted, the assumption would be that the military or the militia could come in and make sure that people are not out on the streets protesting at all.
The president has certainly threatened to use it several times already, but he hasn't. Why do you think that is? And do you think that this time might be any different?
So I would suspect that the president is getting advice from military advisors who say, if you take that next step, that is another step towards what could be martial law, whether that's in one particular city, one particular state, or the entire United States. And that's not a road a president wants to go down. The reason this might be different is that every single time the administration is ratcheting up how many ICE agents are surrounding the greater Twin Cities area, as well as the entire state of Minnesota, the other side, the protesters and those who are watching ICE are ratcheting up their game as well. And I don't mean that they're ratcheting up their game by causing violence or trying to harm ICE agents. The protests are just growing larger. And so it's almost this game of chicken. And if that game of chicken goes far enough, I could see that this might be the time the president would really invoke that clause.
Now, if he does invoke it, we already know the courts will be asked to get involved. Today, Attorney General Keith Ellison said he is prepared to challenge it in court. Jana.
Well, that then raises the obvious question, Kent, about the prospects of a case like that. I know you talked about that, and we can talk about the results of that question when we come back.